and I have reached the point of reading to you Ezekiel Kralen's story about the two little dogs, Flacco and Lucky, and his meth head friend, Deke, and the other people who live around on the street and who he interacts with on various occasions for various reasons. And we're up to January 1st and 2nd in the story. Born with a Scream, New Year's Day, Ezekiel Kralen wrote. Email post from January 1st and 2nd. Subject, New Year's Eve sucked as usual. When doesn't it? Continued. Date, January 1st, morning. No, I didn't ask you to feed them. I'm going to kick their food into the street. I watched as Deke swung a foot right at the bowls without really touching any of them. He then turned to me. I told you to bring him a box and some trash bags to make a shelter for them. Are you fucked in the head or something? I raised my hands, palm out, and said, Okay, I'll do that right now. I returned with a large folded corrugated box and 3 large trash bags and set them down against the ATM plywood. Here you go, you can set it up. No, I can't. You do it. I'm having a nervous breakdown. My hands are too jittery. You're full of crap, Deke, I retorted. Big drama queen. You're not having a nervous breakdown. But I went ahead anyway and opened the folded cardboard into a box, overlapped the flaps at one end, and then set it down atop a trash bag I had laid down flat. Then I took a dry sleeping bag I had also brought with me, placed it in the box, and with that the hounds rushed inside to get cozy. Finally, I arranged the 2 remaining bags over the box to fully enclose it, including over the open end, and since it was a bit breezy, I placed one of Deke's sodden sweaters on top to keep the cover bags from blowing off. Deke had sat down once I completed this urgent task and hollered, Where's a towel to dry the dogs off? They're drying off right now, Deke, in the box, but let me bring down some clean rags anyway. And off I went back inside and up the stairs to retrieve them. Here, I said, and handed him 4 face-cloth squares of microfiber that would do the trick in no time. That's it? He bellowed. They're too small. No, they're not, Deke, I replied. You only really need 2. Now, please, between your screams, dry them off. He then stuck one hand inside the box and began rubbing the pups down with one of those rags, yet continued to holler at the top of his lungs all sorts of foul accusations. So I interjected, Okay, that does it. I'm calling the cops, and I promptly returned to hovel. It took a while for them to pick up the phone, and during those minutes Deke continued hollering up at my window, Zeke, get back down here. I'm leaving now. Zeke Kralen. Zeke! Zeke! With smartphone in hand, I looked outside to see him pacing the sidewalk while the canines remained huddled in their makeshift cave, warm and happy at this point while the rain continued to pour down. It was a moderate rain, though, not a gully washer, thank Yog. Hello, SFPD, what's your issue? I then explained how my homeless friend is disturbing the peace with nonstop screams and pounding on the front gate. He refuses to leave, so I had to call the police. I don't want to press charges. I just want him to go away until he calms down. I help him with his 2 little dogs, and he's now demanding I take them off his hands overnight, which I can't possibly do as I'm not allowed to bring them inside. He's a drama queen and quite capable of taking care of the dogs himself, but he sometimes goes into a bipolar snit, and this is one of those times. He also smokes meth. Is that him yelling in the background? Yep, it sure is, I replied. She then asked me to describe his appearance, which I did, as well as my location. Okay, we'll send a car out soon as we can, but it may take a while. I understand this is low priority. Thank you, I replied. Then we disconnected. Before stepping back out, I pocketed my phone and brought 2 new sweaters with me to replace the damp ones. He had calmed down by then, but still spewed hatred and accusations in a loud enough tone for passers-by to notice. So you called the cops? Of course, I replied. No way I'm going to let someone scream at me around my building. But I'm not screaming now, he snarked. Well, you're still here just the same, I said. You need to go where the police department will force you to leave. Screaming like a lunatic and banging on the gate just doesn't work for me. I did not bang on the gate. The lying Cajun devil objected in feigned outrage. You think they're going to believe you just because you called first? No, because they know you and your childish antics, I clarified by stating the obvious. If you're not going to watch the dogs, then bring the speaker back down and I'll go, he demanded with a scowl. No need, I replied. You can pick it up later. I just want you to leave right now. You're being a freaky pest. I then walked over to the curb and peered up Market Street to see if I could spot a cop car coming in this direction. No luck, damn it. Oh, you're waiting for the popo to show up, Deke remarked. Yep, and the sooner the better, I said, then peered up the street again before walking back toward Deke, who by now was standing beside his cart. Tell you what, Zeke, he spewed, once you pay Sedge, I'm through with you. You won't see me again after that. Look, you need to stop all this fake drama. It's a crock of shit, I warned him. You are perfectly capable of taking better care of the dogs. I've seen many other homeless people with their pets who do, and they keep them dry and warm when it's raining, so stop it. You don't fool me for a moment. This is not the end of the world. It's just some water falling from the sky. He then broke into crocodile tears, exclaiming that he never lied to me. He really lost a friend to fentanyl. I'm breaking his heart by my coldness, blah, blah. You're a lousy actor, Deke, I responded, a pathetic drama queen. You have 2 lovely doggies to watch over, and you should be the happiest person on the planet for that reason alone. Your life is going much better than you care to admit. Well, his belligerent rants continued, and some young gay fellow suddenly showed up and stopped near Deke's shopping cart to assess the situation. Seeing that I was not arguing back but offering good advice, he smiled. That's when Deke noticed him and said, "We're okay." The momentary bystander then took off to parts east, and Deke resumed his absurd charges against me, saying how I'm supposed to be his best friend, but I'm not that at all. I'm pure evil. But just seconds later, that sweet 40-something Japanese lady appeared, the one who shows up now and then to admire the Brindlekin and speak kind words to their owner. She was looking down at the box where the pups were resting, wondering if they're okay. They're warm and dry in there, I assured her. Yes, they do look comfortable, she replied, then turned to address Deke while I returned upstairs to use the restroom. But before I shut the gate, I heard her ask if she knitted a couple of sweaters for the dogs. Would they wear them? I don't think she'd appreciate if Deke accepts them, and a few days later the sweaters are already gone, tossed onto a curb somewhere, as he often does with the ones I buy. But I certainly appreciated both the appearance of that fellow who paused by the cart for a few moments and the Japanese woman who engaged deep in kind communion, like angels who suddenly manifested to bring a sense of peace to the scene. Better yet, that fellow returned with a companion and held out a beverage in a large plastic cup with a lid on. Would you guys like some beer? At first I thought he said root beer and said my friend could go for that, but Deke turned him down. I looked at the cup a bit closer and realized it was brewski, so I told him, "Oh, beer. Sorry, but both of us are teetotalers. Thank you for the kind offer just the same." And off they went on their merry way with foaming booze to maybe share with some other vagrant. About that time, Deke started to pack his things and summon the pooches from their box. "Going so soon?" I queried. "Don't you want to meet some friendly guardians of the law?" "No, not really," he replied. "I'll come back around 7:30 to pick up the speaker." "Well then, see you later, alligator," I chuckled, then gave the pups a few more hugs before returning Hoffel. Once upstairs, I called the SFPD to cancel my grievance. But I wish I hadn't, because a half hour later when I stepped back outside to purchase milk and margarine, I saw Deke parked just 6 doors up. Once Deke returned to retrieve the speaker, I first rebagged the JBL Party Box 300 before lugging it down the stairs. Then I reached the landing and turned the corner. He saw me through the gate and started pounding on it again, though not so ferociously as earlier. "You're thumping it down the stairs," he called. "That could damage it. Let me get it. You can't do anything right." Another phony accusation hurled at me, good physician. I was lifting it up, carrying it 2 or 3 steps, then setting it down. Rinse and repeat. No thumps, bumps, or grunts. But since Deke was so near, I left the speaker 2 steps below the landing and stepped into the lobby to let him enter and retrieve it himself. "Oh, it's not that heavy, Zeke," he scorned. "You're such a wuss." "Yes, it is," I replied, "especially since the double bag makes it difficult to grip the handle." As I held the gate open and he passed, I added the following observation. "You're always making excuses to find fault with me, to hate me. I don't really care. It's tiresome, but you can say all the nasty things about me you want, so long as you stop screaming." He ignored that, and I stepped out with him just to wish him and Mutz a good night once more. He thanked me for purchasing that speaker and all the good things I do for him and the dogs. I said, "You're welcome, glad to do it." But once he placed the speaker into his cart, he began his vitriolic rants again as he started pushing the shopping cart toward Noe Street. "I'm going to tell everyone I meet what an evil fuck you are, and you're not going to like it when they start throwing rocks in your window and screaming right outside." "You go right ahead, Deke," I replied. "Your friends have already informed me that you're a thief and a liar, and they're not going to be your little Stepan-Fetchits." I don't think he has any idea who Stepan-Fetchit is, but I think he got the gist of it. Once upstairs again, I listened to more of Marshall's latest podcast until I heard him read my latest tale, upon which I spliced it out and uploaded it to my YouTube channel. Delightful. And that's my New Year's Eve, Watson. No wonder I stopped celebrating the holidays decades ago. They never work out for me like they do in the movies, unless we're talking the horror versions thereof. At least seeing the doggies and hearing Marshall's narration were truly bright spots amid this Stygian tomfoolery. Same goes for that amiable gay dude with beer and the nice Japanese lady. I really can't complain. That's Deke's department anyway. New Year's Eve sucked as usual. When doesn't it? Date January 1st afternoon. Watson wrote, "What's disturbing is how fast he goes from reasonable and calm to bellowing and abusive to weeping and regretful and back again. Talk about rinse and repeat. He goes through an entire manic cycle that would usually take a few months in mere minutes." I replied, "I don't dwell on it. He is what he is. I consider it as simply another opportunity to turn a horrible situation into a winning one for both parties, a la my bodhisattva premise. What's more disturbing is the vulgar pettiness of certain occupants in my building, ready to snap at me because they despise the homeless and anyone who reaches out to them, who do not take so much as a moment to see the kindness of my actions, and the two lovely doggies who are so sweet and joyful. And Deke's nuisances are a drop in the bucket compared to all the other disturbances going on in this neighborhood, more like a battleground at times than a pleasant locale. But that, too, is just another challenge for me to morph into a celebratory outcome." Watson wrote, "I have felt my own inner optimism and pessimism meter vacillate wildly within the space of a few breaths. So I know what it's like. The difference, of course, is that I have self-control. I certainly don't fault Deke. I know his life has been anything but easy and privileged." I replied, "Exactly. He grew up in a poverty-stricken area with crude family and community." Watson wrote, "But man, I get hot under the collar when I read about him being a loudmouthed bully screaming insults at you." I replied, I'm tempted to as well, but it is my responsibility to be better than that, since my behavior in response to Deke's outburst determines his fate as well as the pup's. So I dare not stoop down to his level, and as my bodhisattva teacher, he certainly puts me through my paces. Things will get better." Watson wrote, "The appearance of the walk-on characters in last night's drama, the Japanese lady offering to knit and the gay guy offering you the beer, was really marvelous." I replied, "Again, the bodhisattva premise. There will always be angels to step in now and then, to give you succor throughout whatever ordeals one goes through. You may not realize this in the heat of the moment, but hindsight and self-reflection usually raise the veil." And lastly, subject, 3 more angels, date January 2nd. Deke and pups came by yesterday evening and slept there overnight. They're still outside, and it's now the next day, 11 a.m. But so far so good. He was barely a pest, and I sat with the hounds after feeding them, laying down cardboard and making them cozy with a fluffy sleeping bag. Small flurries of New Year's Day revelers strolled by in both directions, often emitting oohs and ahs over the pups with their little heads poking out. Deke allowed me some quality time with them, though he remained nearby, schmoozing with his usual vagrant visitors, so it's not like he wandered off leaving me stranded. The first angel. One young woman stopped to crouch down and admire them, lingering for almost 20 minutes while her 2 friends stood nearby, chatting merrily among themselves. She saw me feed and settle them in before approaching us. "They're so adorable," she exclaimed, while petting Lucky as I held Flacco supine on my lap and scritching her belly. "Aren't you a handsome fellow?" she addressed Lucky, who kindly drank in her many compliments. Then she reached out to his sister and emoted, "Don't you have the sweetest little face?" We had an excellent conversation. I made it clear they're not my dogs, though most beloved, but belong to a homeless friend who I help out. "That's awfully kind of you to do that," she replied. Upon departing, she wished me a very happy New Year. I said thanks for those good words and wished her the same. To be continued.